Hey everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 2 class. Today we are going to be solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. Okay, if you don't know the quadratic formula, that's where you need to start. So in Algebra 1, you should have learned the quadratic formula. Maybe you need to go back and review it. It's been a while, and so make sure that you do that. Let's go ahead and, if you will, take out your textbook and look at page number 91. On page number 91, they actually take the quadratic formula and they start with standard form. And we learned standard form on the last video. We learned it last year in Algebra 1. And they take and they what's called derive the quadratic formula from the standard form of the quadratic equation. You don't have to know all that, but basically they take a whole page and show you how they would derive it, how they developed, if you will, the quadratic formula. Here's what you need to know. You need to know that x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And that is the quadratic formula right there. So you need to memorize that. That is one of those things that if you don't know it, you can't solve it. Okay, you can't answer the question because you don't know the formula that you need to solve the question with. Okay. Well, there's a few steps there on page number 91. I don't really love the steps because there's no steps to this. Here's the steps. Plug in and solve. There's your steps. Okay. And so we'll go ahead and do that. Let's look at this on page number 92. There's an example. I'll write the example. I'm going to leave the quadratic formula there, and I'm going to go ahead and write an example. So 2x squared plus 7x plus 5 equals 0. So there's our quadratic formula. And now we need to make sure that we know what the a is, make sure we know what the b is, make sure we know what the c is, because that's going to be very, very important. So there's our a. So our a equals, I'll put it over here, a equals 2. Here's our b. Our b equals 7. And then here's our c. C equals 5. Now what we're going to do is everywhere in the quadratic formula that you see an a, we're going to substitute in the number 2. Everywhere that you see a b, we're going to substitute in the number 7. Everywhere you see letter C, we're going to substitute in the number 5. That's all we're going to do, and then we're going to solve it. Okay, so let's go ahead and rewrite this thing. I'll put it right down here. So negative b, negative 7 plus minus the square root of b squared. You can just write b squared if you want. You can write 7 squared if you like. Now I know most of you are going to be using your calculator to solve this. So however you want to do that, I'm just going to write 49. I'm just going to square it in my head. Okay, you do whatever you want there. Minus 4 times 2 times c. Now, why did I write, well, times c, times 5. There we go. Let's try that. Now, why did I write parentheses? Because this is times right here. Now, we can't just write all the numbers scrunched in, or else we're going to think that it says 425. So put your parentheses, and that will help you out. And that's all divided by 2a, or 2 times 2. 2 times 2. And I could just write 4 there, and that will save me some time. All right, so there we go. Now, you can use your scientific calculators, and you can plug into that. You have to know how to use your scientific calculators. I am going to go ahead and solve it piece by piece because I want to show you how this thing works. But And you can do it however you want. If you want to solve it piece by piece, that's great. If you want to solve it all in one thing on your scientific calculator, you got to make sure where to put the parentheses and everything else. So I'm going to show you both ways, and in fact, you can do it both ways and make sure that you're getting the same answer both different ways that you do it. All right, let's take a minute. In fact, we're going to start right here, but let's take a minute. Let's talk about what that is. Those numbers underneath the radical sign, because those come up in several different places where sometimes all we need to figure out is that right there, because it'll tell us certain things. And we'll get to that later on in the book. But for right now, we do need to identify this and talk about what this is. This is called, this little area right here, all that underneath the radical sign in the quadratic formula is called the discriminant. You can write that down. The discriminant, there it is. And then it's also, that's in your book on page number 94, if you want to look there. But that discriminant right there, what that will tell us is that actually tells us a little bit about the answer. And I'm not going to take the time to explain all of it to you right now because we're going to go through this later on throughout the year. But that discriminant tells us some interesting things. But that's where we want to start. That's where we want to begin the process. So we'll go ahead and start there. I'll start order of operation. Now there's a couple different things you can do with this negative sign. You can actually attach it to the 4, or you can leave it there and do it later. It doesn't matter. It's going to come out the same way. So let's do this. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. Okay. So there's our first thing. And so I'm just going to keep writing this over and over as I simplify it. What did I come up with? 40. Okay. All right. So the first piece is done, and this is still all over 4. Okay. So there's the first piece to the puzzle. And now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do it again. We're still working on this discriminant. We haven't finished it yet. And so now we have 49 minus 40, which is going to give us 9. So minus 7 plus minus the square root of 9. And we don't need that big square root sign anymore since we simplified it out. 9 over 4. Now, this is really the point in time where this kind of becomes our answer. Now, there's a little bit more that we can do with this, and we will do this here in just a second because we can solve this. In this one, we can solve this. Sometimes that's our answer right there. We're done. As soon as we solve the discriminant, we're done with it because we can't do anything else. And that's when I said, remember, if the discriminant tells us certain things, it gives us kind of little keywords, little clues to what the answer is going to look like. Well, this discriminant comes out to a perfect square. So we can keep going with this one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to solve that. So we're going to say minus 7 plus minus, and that solves out to 3 over 4. Now here, what we need to do is, because of this plus minus sign, we really have two different things happening here. We have a minus 7 plus 3 over 4 and a minus 7 minus 3 over 4. You see what happened there? I just split that plus minus sign into two different sections there. Okay. And so let's do this one first over here, the purple one. Minus 7 plus 3 is going to give us minus 4 over 4. Minus 4 over 4, and that will give us minus 1. X equals negative 1. And over here, this yellow one, we're going to get minus 10 over 4. And we can reduce that out to minus 5 over 2, and that would be our answer there, minus 5 over 2. I would keep my answers in improper fractions. Don't turn them into mixed numbers. You could theoretically turn them into decimals right there. Depends on kind of what, if you're working in science, you're going to want decimals probably. If you're working in mathematics, you're going to want an improper fraction. Some forms, some branches of mathematics would use the decimal as well. But for what we're doing, the improper fraction is probably the best thing to do with that right there. Okay? Okay, let's look at one more here. I've got one written out. And the first thing that you notice about this is like, oh my goodness, Mr. Steve, look at all those fractions. I can't handle fractions in this. Oh my goodness, my brain's going to explode. Okay, calm down. Don't worry about it. We can find the LCD, and we can actually eliminate these fractions. This will help us out a lot. So the LCD of 3, 6, and 3 is 6. It's a bad 6. There we go. It's a little bit better. All right, so what we need to do is we need to multiply everything by 6. And we're not going to change the value of this because we're going to multiply everything by 6, including the 0, which is going to give us 0 anyways, but we're going to do it just to show. All right, so it's going to cancel to 1, it's going to cancel to 2, so I'm going to get 2k squared plus, cancel to 1, that's going to give me 8k plus, and that's going to give me 1, and that's going to give me 2, that's going to give me 4, equals 6 times 0 is 0. All right, so now that's going to give me my A, B, or my A, B, and C. So my A is 2, my B is 8, and my C is 4. And what we're going to do is we're now going to plug that into our quadratic formula. Okay, so what you see here is now I've gone ahead just and did it just to save a little bit of time on the video. I plugged in all of these numbers here. I did some of the math. I did the squaring of the 8 here, and then I also did the 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, and so now I end up with this, and I want to again start with the discriminant. I'll start with this section here. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 4 is negative 32. So I'm going to have negative 8 plus minus square root of 64 minus 32 over 4. All right, so I'm going to continue to solve in here in the discriminant. Minus 8 plus minus the square root of, what does that give me, 32? Yep. Well, we have a problem. 32 is not a perfect square. Now, so here's what I would do. Now, you can do it a couple different ways. Right here, you can reduce that 32. And if you're going to leave it like this, that is not a good answer because 32 can be reduced. You can come up here and you can actually pull something out of that. So negative 8 plus minus, that 32 comes out to a 16 and a 2 when you square factor it. And I get 4 square roots of 2 over 4. We're still not really done where I would want it. I'm still not going to accept this as an answer. Why not? Because you can factor something out of this. You can factor a 4 outside of that. So you would end up with 4 times negative 2 plus minus square root of 2 over 4. And then I would cancel that. And then I would end up with just the negative 2 plus minus square root of 2. That would be your answer. Now, what if they want that in a fractional form or in a decimal form? Okay. Well, you just come over here to your calculator, and I would go ahead and just plug this in. So you got to know how to use your calculator. My calculator on the computer is going to be different than your handheld calculator. So I've got to put mine in, and this is a negative 2. Can't really see it there, but it is negative 2. So it's there. All right, so I got to put my negative 2 in parentheses. So I got negative 2 parentheses. And we're going to do this 2 times. I'm going to do it one for the plus value and one for the minus value. So I would say plus 2 square root equals. And there it is, negative 58 negative 0.585. It depends on how far you want it to go. The book typically says you can do it to 2 decimal points. So this is going to equal, in decimal form, this is going to equal negative 58, well, 59. Negative 0.59. Okay, there's one answer, and that's the positive answer. Okay, then the negative answer would give us something different. I think I can go up here, maybe not. I'll just clear it out. So negative 2. Now I'm doing minus 2 square root equals, and that one would be negative 3.41. Negative 3.41. Now, one thing that's interesting here, and I want you to know this going forward, is if I ever have to round off an answer, which is what I had to do there, I can't say x equals negative 0.59 because x does not equal that. X approximately equals that. We had to round off. X does not equal that exactly. So what we would do is come over here and we would make our equal sign look like bacon. Okay, that's exactly what that looks like to me, and I love bacon, so I know what bacon looks like. So make your equal sign look like bacon, make it look like those little squiggly lines, and then boom, you got it. And then you would also have 2 answers, so you'd have some more bacon down here, minus 3.41. Those would be your 2 answers in decimal form. In radical form, there you go. And I'll accept either one, whichever one you want to give me, unless I ask specifically for decimal form. Then you would have to give it to me using your calculator in a decimal. Or I might say in radical form. But you could give me either one unless I ask for one of those specifically. Okay? All right. Well, that's all I got for you today. That's a big lesson right there. So make sure you go back, check it out, review it, and be ready to go. We'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.